I thought this was a fun one. So in challenge 6, what we want to happen is the user is going to type in another video game. They can type, for instance, I've typed Pong here. And then they have a numeric up and down. So if we did Pong 2 and click the Add Fave button, it would move Legend of Zelda to number 3, Tetris to number 4, and insert Pong in number 2. So if you haven't already gathered by this, we've got to find a way to create a new node. We're creating a new object. And then we have to add that object to our document tree in some form or fashion. We've learned 2 methods to add to our document tree: the append child, which we used with the image challenge, and in this one we're going to use insert before. Insert before allows us to kind of choose exactly where we want to insert into our document tree. Remember, append child always just puts it at the end of the parent's element, or basically it's the last child. Okay, if you look at W3C schools and you want to read more about the insert before method, there's some information on there. But what I really wanted us to take a look at is the syntax. So the syntax, what we need to know, we need to access the parent node. We use the method insert before. We need the new node that we created, and then we need the node that's going to be right after our new node. So this is basically saying we're going to put this before this, okay? If we go back to our code and find our challenge 6, we can take a look at it. Okay, so we've got a lot going on here. We have an input box for a text box. It has an ID of fave text. See that? We have a numeric up and down that has a max of 10, min of 1. That's just going to help protect us when we are making sure that they, well, it's just fine. It just is. And it has an ID of number ID. We have a button that has an ID of add fave. Then we have an unordered list. An ordered list, oh, it's OL, and then some list items, okay? So basically what happens is, like, for instance, when I said I wanted Pong to be the second element, what we want our JavaScript to do is basically that. But we can't modify our HTML. We've got to do it in JavaScript. We've got to do it the hard way, remember? Okay. So let's get started. First, let's go ahead, since the button is going to be, the add fave button is going to be a, what we're listening for our event listener. Let's go ahead and make a global variable for that. So I'm going to do add fave button. And we know that it has an ID, so we're going to use get element by ID, and its ID is add fave. Okay, while we're doing that, let's go ahead and do our event listener just to get that out of the way, because we know that's about to happen. So what do we call the button? Add fave button, add event listener. When we click, we want to execute the add game function. Add game. Okay. So that gets that out of the way. Now we just need to work on our function. Okay, so what do we need to know from what the user enters in order to complete this task? We need to know what they entered in the text box, and we need to know what they entered in the numeric list. So let's create variables to store those. I'm going to create a variable called text element, or text L. And it does have a ID, so we can use get element by ID. Its ID is fave text. Now remember, that only gets us to that text box. That does not give us what the user typed in the text box unless we do the dot value property. Okay, the next one is going to be the numeric up and down. So let's call that numL. And we'll use a get element by ID for it as well. It had an ID of number ID, and just like with the text box, that only gets us, this code only gets us to the numeric up and down. It does not give us the value unless we add dot value to the end. Okay, then for the insert before method, we need to know the parent node. Well, what's the parent node? The parent node, let's go back up here in our code, would be this, right? If we looked in our DOM tree, I'm going to go back to my page and do a Command-Alt-J and go to our elements, and we can expand those as you've done many times in the past, and we can scroll on down here. We can find that under Challenge 6, our parent element of all these list items is an OL. So we need to have a way to access that OL. How can we access that OL? It doesn't have an ID, so we can't use get element by ID. Any other suggestions? All right, well, we're going to use a query selector. See, I hate when we're not here. Like, I like when y'all answer my questions and we're not here for you to talk back to me. And I don't hear any of your jokes. It makes me sad. Okay. I'm going to create a variable called OLL. So that's going to represent the ordered list element. And we're going to do a document.get element, or no, see, I'm so used to it, query selector. OL. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, the query selector is going to return the first instance of any OL, of any unordered list in our document. Okay, now we know the parent. If we come back to W3C schools, we know the parent, which is the OL. We need the new node, which we'll set in just a minute, but we also need to know the previous node. That means we need also some way to access all of these list items that are in here, okay? And because it may change what list item we need to access based on what numeric value the user chooses, we need a collection of those. Okay, so for this, we're going to do a var LIEL. So this is getting all of our list items. And we're doing a document.query selector all LIs. So that's going to return many LIs. We'll have several LIs. Okay? So now we know the parent node. We know where we want to insert before. Now we need to know what we need to insert. Like we need our new node. Okay, so how do we create a new node? Y'all know how to create a new node. We did that with our image challenge. So let's do a new game L. Okay, and let's set it to what happens when we create an element. We want to create an element. Well, what kind of element do we want to create? This is going to appear in our list item, so we want it to be an LI. Okay? That LI, that new node that we created, needs a value, right? We want it to have text. And the text that we want it to have is what the user typed in the text box, okay? So let's give it a value. So our new game, L, is going to have a text content value of what the user typed in the text box. So our text L, okay? All right, so now we just need to do our insert before. Let's look back one more time. I have so many tabs open. Let's look back one more time at W3C schools. It is parent node, insert before method, our new node that we've created, and then the node that's going to be right after this new node. This one's inserted before, okay? All right, so our parent node, we looked back at that. That is the ordered list. So that is our OLEL. Okay? Insert before method. Okay? The new node that we want to insert is the new game, L. It already has a value, so we're good there. And now what do we want to insert it before? We want it to be in a list item. You know, our list elements, it's going to be somewhere in those list L's. But how do we determine, how do we determine which one? Okay, so this returns a collection. We use our square brackets to reference which one that we want in that collection. We got to think about this one a little bit. If we just put num-L, so that might be something that you were thinking about doing. Let's look and see what happens. This is wrong, but let's see what happens. Num-L, remember, is what the user entered in the numeric box. Okay, so I'm going to go back. Oh, wrong video. See, I've got so many tabs open. Let's go back and see what happens. So I'm going to type Pong. I'm going to do a number 2. So that means Legends of Zelda should be number 3 and Tetris should be number 4. And then I'm also going to expand here so that we can look at what happens in our elements when I click this Add Fade button. Okay, I hope I did my event listener. Yay. Okay. So it did. It added Pong at 2. Right? Yeah. Because index values start counting at 0. So this was 0, this was 1, and this was 2. But that's not what the user thought, right? The user really meant for it to be this 2, not the way we count because we're coders. So how could we change something about our code to make it start at counting at 1? Let's look. What if we did this? So that would take what the user entered and subtract 1 to make it match what the user was thinking. Okay, so let's try. I'm going to go back. Expand my ordered list so we can see what happens. I'm going to type Pong, set it to number 2, so now it should be number 2, Legend of Zelda should be number 3, Tetris should be number 4, add fave, and that is correct, okay? Because the user entered 2, we had to subtract 1 to get it to the correct place in our DOM tree, okay? I hope that makes sense. If you have questions about this, please email me or contact me and I'll be glad to help you. If you hear banging in the background, that's because one of my cats wants attention and they're not getting it right now. Okay, look what happens though if you do like 5. See, just adds it to the end. Oh, you can keep going and going. We could do other video games like Halo. You guys know I can't play Halo. What's your favorite video game? Minecraft. You do. Okay, so play with it, tinker. All right, on to challenge 7.